but my name is Al Lubel. I like saying Al Lubel. Al Lubel. Probably because I chose Al Lubel. Al Lubel is my stage name. Yeah, you may think it's two names. It's not, it's one name. Sting, Cher, Prince, Seal, Madonna, Al Lubel.
All right, everybody. My next guest is a veteran comedian who has been on the comedy scene since the 1980s. And in 1988, he even won Star Search. He was also one of the last comedy acts to perform on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and has toured the world. And in 2013, he won the Amused Moose Award, which was the judge's prize as the best one-person show in the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. His career has had many highs and lows, and his new documentary, Mentally Al, explores the atypical comedic mind of a man widely admired by his peers, if not well known to the general public. But without further ado, here he is, folks, the one and only Al Lubel. Al Lubel. I'll say it all as one word, Al Lubel. How you doing, man?
Thank you. So had you seen my act before, or you saw it in the documentary where I did that?
I remember your act. I actually remember I was always like a stand-up comedy nerd, pretty much, my whole life. So I would watch Star Search like crazy. I remember your Star Search set.
But I love singing and I love dancing. Except whenever I dance, I always snap my fingers. That's what I'm saying. And I asked myself why I snap my fingers, and my answer was to keep the beat. Like, this makes sense. Like if I suddenly stop.
And I remember when you won it, all that stuff.
The $100,000 comedy champion is Al Lubel. Here, take your money. That's the 100,000.
You know, it was great when I saw this documentary. I was like, yeah, that's Al Lubel, man. This is awesome, man.
Still alive. That's funny. I remember one time like 10 years ago, I went to an old agent. He used to be based in New York, and I used to live in New York. I'm from New York, but I was living in Manhattan, and I had him as an agent in the 90s. And I ended up, I left him like in the early 90s. And then he's a good agent, but I just wasn't getting enough work. And then I moved out to LA at 2011, and I looked him up, and I went out to his office, and he goes, "Gee, Al, I can't believe this. I heard that you committed suicide."
Wow.
So it's weird that I give off an aura of a guy that probably killed himself or something. I say that I hope the show continues. I hope continue to be funny. I mean, as you can tell, I've been funny in the past, and of course, I've also not been funny in the past. And as you can tell, I've also not been funny in the present.
Do you think it's easier now for comics once they get a little established, like for you when you hit the Tonight Show level or Star Search? If that happened nowadays, like let's say you won, a comedy contest like America's Got Talent or something, you could then parlay that into a Netflix special. There's all these other mediums. Do you think that makes it easier for today's comedians, or is it still the same old game?
Well, I don't know. In some ways easier because I think, when I won Star Search, that was a great thing to win, but it was syndicated television. It wasn't network TV, right? It was on like Channel 11 or something in like New York or whatever. But which is a great thing, but still, that's why I was less nervous doing Star Search. No offense to Star Search, but
right.
But I felt less pressure because I would have been really scared in 1987, 88 to do the Tonight Show.
Right.
For that. But Star Search was only 2 minutes at a time. It wasn't Johnny Carson network. It was syndicated. So I felt it was like a chance for me to practice a little. So I wasn't that nervous. And maybe that's why it helped me win, maybe because I was a little less nervous. I was still nervous. I was still scared. But anyway, my point is now if you do like whatever they call America's Got Talent, that's network television, right?
Right.
It's more viewers, I think, than Star Search may have had. So I think it's easier in some ways, especially, if you win something like that, to really, because you're a star on network television,
Right on. I
don't like network television, so. I don't even have a television. I don't watch it. No offense against network television. I don't want to create an enemy. network television versus Al Lubel. You know, I'm afraid of enemies. I don't mind them ignoring me, but I don't.
Right.
So let me just say I love network television.
To our 7 prestigious panelists, I'd just like to say, who are you to judge? But, you know, I've noticed, you know, the singing competition is a lot easier to win on Star Search than the comedy, I think, because to win the singing, all you have to do is get applause, not just at the end of the song, in the middle of the song. And to get applause, all you have to do is hit a high note. Right? Somewhere over the rainbow, there'll be a place for me.
So with Star Search, that was 88. Who were some of the comics that you were up against that year?
Yeah, I remember one comes to mind, an excellent comedian named Jeff Stilson. You know,
Oh
Jeff,
yeah, Jeff Stilson, yeah.
excellent. You know, and he went on to a great producing. He produces he produced that show. What was that show with the Ozzy? The guy that bit a bat's head off.
Yeah, the Osbournes. He produced that.
Yeah, he was the producer of that.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, produced a lot of sports programs, and wrote for Letterman for years and a lot of shows. A great comic. So I luckily beat him, and a guy from Long Island, actually. The first, the odds were against me in the first one. He had just won, this guy, and Frankie Pace?
Oh, Frankie Pace, yeah, he was on with you, yeah.
I was the first guy I beat.
Is it champion Frankie Pace or challenger Al Lubel? The judges give champion Frankie Pace 2 3/4 stars. Al Lubel receives 3.5 stars. We have a new champion. Congratulations, Al. Did a very good job. Tell me, you're an attorney. Are you still practicing law?
No, I practiced law for 2 years in Newport Beach, and I quit to become a comedian.
Well, you're on your way. We'll see you next week. Congratulations, Al. Thank you.
Then in the semifinal, I know I lost to, I had already won 3 or 4 of them, so I already qualified for the semifinals. But I lost I lost to Michael Finney. Do you know comedy magician Michael Finney?
Sounds familiar.
You know why your dad always hit you with the belt? Because that's all you ever bought him for his birthday, Christmas, and Father's Day was another belt.
But then I qualified for the semis. I beat a guy named Ron Richards. I don't know I think that was his name. Very funny guy. And the finals, Mike Dugan.
Yeah, Mike Dugan. I remember him too.
Yeah, great and also a great writer. So he writes on TV shows and a really funny guy. So yeah, I got very lucky doing that.
No, that was great. You were definitely great, definitely memorable on that show. Definitely earned it and deserved the win and all that stuff. And it was just such a great time period for comedy too, like the 80s boom. So many great comedians came out of the 80s boom. There was just so much happening for comedy at that point, all the comedy clubs opening up. How important would you say the 80s was to stand up?
Well, I think it was extremely important, but you could argue it was important in a positive and a negative way. I mean, it was important getting it out there, but I believe like evening at the Improv, I think that started late 80s, right? Actually started early 80s on a small level, and it kept getting more and more popular. I didn't start doing it until the late 80s, but I think that hurt comedy for a while. Comedy became on television so much. It was on the A&E network that people didn't feel the need to go out to comedy clubs as much anymore. They could watch it on TV.
Yeah.
So I think that may have hurt the club world for a while. But then the club world rebounded. I mean, it got comedy out there. I have mixed feelings about the whole thing. I mean, there's a part of me that misses, like I came around, like you said, in the 80s. I wasn't around in the 70s when, I think actually in the late 60s, the Improv opened in New York. And the first time I ever went to the Improv, I was a college student. It was like 77, 78. I remember I watched Joe Piscopo come up on stage, and
that's cool.
I can't remember the names of a couple of other guys, but it was exciting to see that. And I think back then it was more of you didn't have to kill all the time. It really was the improvisation. part of it was improvisation. You'd have like Broadway, like Bette Midler might show up. I don't know if her literally, but someone like that. And she could sing a song, but improvise something funny, you know, like it didn't have to be this tight business-like thing, like get laughs constantly. And it wasn't as much of a business. It was more of an art form.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's the way comedy should be. And it became a business. I remember when I did the San Francisco International Comedy Competition, and I don't want to knock them. It was a good experience for me to do it, but it was the first time I ever heard someone say, I think one of the guys, not the guy that runs the whole thing, but one of the guys involved with it said laughs per minute.
Right.
I never heard that one before.
Yeah. There's a lot of science has been applied to comedy where people say, oh, you need, you know, at least, you know, 2 laughs per minute or 3 laughs per minute. And, you know, all this, the setup punch, you know, tag type style of comedy, which definitely was part of like that 80s. And then I think you kind of, you know, and they talk about it in the documentary too, where you kind of forefronted in a way alternative comedy. Now, alternative comedy existed still the way I see it, like, you know, Andy Kaufman and the like, but you were still one against the grain in a different way. I always just wonder, like, what, you know, especially after watching the documentary, why did you decide, you know what, I know that I'm, you know, winning contests like Star Search and all this with this comedy I'm currently doing, but now I'm going to take it into and do it this way.
But the truth is, you can go just like that. Have you heard that before? You can go just like that. That's not a second. Ah. That's a fraction of a second, right? Ah. This is a second. Ah. Right? So not only can I die now or now or now, I can die now. I can't answer simple questions. Hey, Al, got a second? I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't a conscious decision to try to change the way I was doing it. It was like, I didn't like, I just wanted to express myself. And it turned out my expression of myself, I was in therapy. I started going to therapy again in the late 80s. Because actually, yeah, when I won Star Search, I thought I'd be happy because I won. And I was happy at the moment I won.
Right.
But 3-4 days later, I got really depressed. And I've only learned, I've recently listened to some podcasts by by a psychologist guy that, you know, it's normal to have the big letdown, you know, after you get the big dopamine hit,
Right.
getting what you want, but then the dopamine crashes, you know, and like there's certain ways to kind of keep the dopamine not crashing. I forgot the details, but anyway, I didn't know this back then. So I got really depressed. I started seeing a shrink, and via doing that, I started learning about myself a little more, like getting more in touch with the fact that I was angry at my mother,
Right.
how controlling she still was, and just how fearful I was. I remember his final words to me when I stopped seeing him about like 1992. His final words to me were, press against the fear. Because I'm going to feel the fear, but you got to press against it, you know, and try to, you know, not always. I mean, sometimes fear is healthy.
Right.
You know, but in general, like, you know, you know, most people do, a lot of people do this, but I'll always do this. I'll invent many ways to decide to not do something because I'm scared of it.
Right.
You know? And most of the time you don't need to be, you feel, there's a good book out there called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. It's a very good book. And essentially she's saying the same thing as press against the fear.
Right.
But what's my point? My point is I learned more about myself in therapy. So by via learning more about myself, then I wanted to express that. It just seemed like, you know, so it wasn't a conscious decision, oh, I'm going to try to be alternative. I didn't think that. It turned out I'm kind of a weird guy to begin with. And if I express myself, I'm going to come off alternative.
Right. And I think that, you know, I do think it's brave in a way to go up, you know, on stage, especially in the beginning when people aren't ready for it. You know, 'cause now if someone goes to see you, they know they're getting Al Lubel, they know who you are, you know, you've established.
Actually, let me just interrupt and say, that's not really true. Like I'd say 90% of the audience still doesn't know me, 95%. They really don't. And it's still you know, but I like the challenge kind of. I actually like it. I'm scared if ever the day ever came where everyone liked me and knew me, that's going to be scary because I like a challenge.
Right. Yeah. You could see that too. Like in your and a lot of your stuff that I've been, watching throughout the documentary and also, through YouTube and stuff like that. You could see that you kind of thrive off the awkwardness a little bit, and then you want to win them over. And that's, to me, one of the greatest things a comedian can do is when you bring them to you instead of you pandering to them. So you've now brought them into your zone, and now they're on board with you. And I think that says a lot. And it's not easy.
I like doing that, and there are negatives to that, because sometimes you don't get everybody a lot. Sometimes you don't get everybody. And so you lose some people, and then you lose work because the club's upset you didn't get everybody.
Right, yeah.
But I don't think comedy should really. Well, at least for me, I can't. If I try to really please them with what they want to hear, I just lose my soul. I lose interest. I can do it for maybe 4 minutes, and then I want out.
Right.
You would think that being good enough would be enough, but it's not enough.
So that whole, a lot of comics is, normally, I have my clean set, I have my dirty set, I have this set, I have the set for, if I play a black crowd, I got my set for a white crowd. For you, it's, I'm playing the room as me, take it or leave it.
No, part of me wishes I could say that. It's not really true. I can sense how much a crowd can take. I still want to, it depends on the audience. Like if I know it's a real stiff kind of audience, I will gently break them into what I'm doing, because I still want to do well. I won't completely sell out. I won't do, but I'll try to manipulate them to try to get them to where I want to go.
Right.
But I know not to try to overdo it up front and lose them, because if I lose them, what's the point? I mean, I could completely lose them. Then the club won't have me back, and they hate me. The crowd hates me. And I don't feel that was a good experience for anybody, So, and also I do like to manipulate. So I like to try to take a crowd that's not going to go my way initially, and not overdo it with them up front, because then I lose them. So try to slowly manipulate them, slowly break them down. I like to torture people.
I think that's awesome. And I think, some of your stuff, like when you first come out, sometimes you'll sing, just to the people and measure the laughter in the room, a little bit of laughs. Oh no, now we got a little more laughs.
What a great job Ari did. It's a great job, and you guys are a nice crowd. It's nice to be here tonight at the Borgata Comedy Club. Some of you might be wondering why I'm singing. It's because I like singing. I enjoy singing, but I am a comedian. My job is to get laughs. I hope I'm funny here tonight. Uh-oh, I got no laughs right there, though. But I got some laughs right there.
So we got, and it goes on, and it actually gets more and more funny as it goes, because I guess because you keep doing it and you're not stopping, and just people are waiting, and it's just one of those things that just I just love that. And when I'm watching you do that stuff, I'm also kind of wondering how the crowd is I'm thinking about, it's like if I was to introduce you to somebody new, I would be watching their reaction to you, so that's how
do that.
Would you welcome Al Lubel?
Al Lubel.
Al Lubel.
Al Lubel.
Yes, my name is Al Lubel.
Al Lubel.
My name's Al.
Al Lubel. 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 You know what's strange? The more I say my name, the more y'all look at me like, who is this guy?
This documentary, Mentally Al, is awesome, and it's a great look into your life, into your comedy side, your personal life. It gets real personal at times. There's nothing sugar-coated or anything. How are you happy with how this came out, and what's your thoughts on the documentary as a whole now that it's out there for everybody to see on Amazon?
Yeah, it's and also I'll give it a plug on the other places too, like YouTube and those other things. I've never been on, what are they called, Apple iWorld, iTunes, Apple TV, whatever that.
Right.
I've been on that stuff. Anyway, I'm on it actually, but never as a human being.
Right.
But my point is that yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised that the director had seen me in high school. He was in high school, and I played the New York Comedy Club, actually in Boca Raton.
Oh, wow.
Called the New
Okay.
York Comedy Club in Boca Raton,
Yeah, cool.
Florida. And ironically, in New York City, there's a comedy club called the Boca Raton Comedy Club. I'm joking. But no, but my point is that he had seen me in high school and always liked me. He'd come to 2-3 times to come see me, along with the producer of it, Dana Marino, and I think the cinematographer and co-producer also, Jordan Service. Anyway, so he asked to do a documentary on me when he was in high school. And I didn't want him to do it because I was working on a screenplay about me, which I'm still working on, actually. But this is back in 2004. I didn't want it to interfere with my screen. I thought it would make if a documentary about me is already out, then no one's going to want to see the screenplay, because the screenplay is already about me too. I only had one me, so.
Right.
Anyway, I'm still working on the screen. Anyway, my point is I didn't want him to do it. But then, to make a long story short, ran into each other in LA about 6 years ago. And he had gone to film school already, and he asked me again to do it. And so I agreed. And then I was pleasantly, I liked the fact that he really liked my sense of humor, and so I thought that was a good sign. But he had never done a documentary before. He never directed a documentary. And so I didn't really care almost how it came out. I didn't really think about that. I was just thought, let him do it. I didn't really want it done anyway. So I really wasn't worried about it, because I didn't really want it done. His idea was to get me a Netflix special, but they said no, because they didn't know who I was. And so he figured he'll do a documentary. He says, can I just do 5-minute documentary on you? Just a little something to show them. But of course, it slowly started growing to 10 minutes, to 15, and then it ended growing to the whole thing. Ironically, he then tries to sell the documentary to Netflix, and they still say, we don't know this guy. So, no, we don't know this guy. So anyway, my point is that I was really pleasantly surprised with what a good job he did.
Before there was a word alternative comedy, there was Al.
Talking about myself is what makes me different from all the other comedians out there today. Because if you notice, they almost never talk about Al Lubel.
He told me what he did. He's kind of meditated on it. He had all this film shot on me. And I believe he said to me, I just meditated on it. I just thought, what would naturally follow to this? What would naturally follow to that? And I've seen it a couple of times with an audience, how an audience reacts. And they really react well, the two audiences I've seen. And yeah, I'm really, last time I saw it was at the Gasparilla Film Festival in Tampa back in June.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I was really impressed. And then I watched it with a couple of friends a few days ago, and I liked watching it again because also they added music. They got a guy that did great background music.
Yeah,
that made it flow even better. And I must say, I thought Josh really did a great job of directing it.
Just concerned about how much of me I can be.
Somehow, powers that be didn't pick up on him.
Whether I'm right. There's comics, and then there's Al Lubel.
My whole life it's been hard to get work as a comedian. I can really feel that a lot of people like it, and a lot of people didn't.
I gotta be.
He's going to do what he wants to do. And you love him or you don't get it.
Yeah,
and
then
also with the guy Alex Russick, I should say. Also, Alex is the co-editor, and that also incredibly helped. And yeah, it really flows, and it's real. And I think in one review, it's really well said. Josh doesn't take a point of view about it. He's not approving of me. He's not disapproving of me. He's just showing it. And I think that's what a documentary should be,
So it's not so much the room, it's just you get these, when I walked in, I was immediately depressed seeing how many older, tired people. These are not my crowd. Now, there could be half the crowd that loves what I'm doing. But when you get half the crowd hating you, it's not gonna be easy to get booked back.
And like you said, he didn't take a point of view, and it really exposes you as a person. Was there anything off limits, or do you just let him have just full, control of of everything he shot.
Yeah, I didn't say anything was off limits.
Yeah, because I loved it, and I think it gets really deep, and your mom, God bless her, I'm sorry on her passing and all of that since the taping. That must have been tough for you, because I think you had like a bittersweet relationship with her.
Yeah, I did. It was very tough, but the weird thing is I feel kind of bad. The one part I feel bad about is when I'm like angry at her, like in the car ride heading to visit her.
She fucked it up. If there was parenting class, she would have failed. She would have failed parenting class. There should be parenting class, and she would have failed. And is it a surprise I'm a failure? I'm the product of her. So I'm a failure because I was raised by a person that would fail parenting class.
But it's true about me. I would get angry like that in life. I think that. But the bottom line is, I really did love my mother almost too much. I was too attached, which I'm angry about, actually, because I was too much of an attachment, but, wildly attached to my mother, and like her being the most special person in my life, so, but I feel bad I showed that side of me, but I think a documentary should show that.
She'd always say to me, "You're nothing but a spoiled brat." But I was thinking, if my mother didn't give in to me, I could never become a brat, right? You can't become a brat if your parent doesn't give in to you. So my mother is yelling at me for being something that she created. Right? I mean, that's like walking up to somebody, stabbing them in the chest, and going, "You're such a victim."
Yeah, I think we all feel that way about our loved ones and people close to us, and especially our parents. And a lot of times when things don't go your way, it's easy, I guess, to blame them. It's your fault. The way you raised me, man. And
Right.
You definitely played that card.
They were never abusive. They
No,
were
but you
just.
told me they wouldn't let me lift anything. That's abusive.
Well, to you, that's abusive. But they were always there. Yeah, but
That's another
you
problem.
also made it that way
How?
because you were very demanding.
I thought you
I
told
want food now,
Right.
not waiting. I want it, and they would run and get it.
Yeah. No, I definitely played that, but I also liked I didn't expect to like this, or even I didn't know how I knew he was filming us talking, but until I saw the documentary, I really loved seeing those moments between me and my mother, like from a third party objective thing, watching it, seeing the interplay,
That's how I knew
watching that.
as a viewer, and the guy doesn't know you, I could tell that you had a deep love for your mom when you guys were interacting and talking, and just the way you would laugh, how she would make you laugh, and how you guys were on the same page. Like you tell stories and you just see it both clicks and you both know where you're going with it, and it was beautiful.
We laugh a lot. Our memories, we remember a lot, and we get along, I think, very well.
What do you mean the story of your life?
Well, because we were very close, weren't we?
There was times in those conversations you throw like little digs at her, and some would go over her head, but other ones you just see her kind of go, like she would make a face like you.
That's funny. I'll have to watch that again because I didn't even notice that.
I could be wrong. I mean,
I
but
believe you.
yeah, that's how I read it. But
no, you know why? Because I'm so self-obsessed a lot. I'm watching myself and not her.
No, but it was like I said, it was very telling, and also the kind of trials and tribulations of you as an artist, as a comedian, who peaked right out of the gate in the 80s with the big, the Star Search, and then and then I guess it would be tough to see some peers that looked up to you go on. And I think one of the telling things in the documentary that actually, because it's the same thing for me, man, I've had interns and stuff all become way more successful than me, but I love the line that actually I felt it, because I feel the same way when somebody says that when you got offended because somebody asked you if you could do it all over again, would you? And you're like, well, would you ask Jerry Seinfeld that? Would you ask, you're like, by the fact that you're saying that to me is insinuating that I failed somehow. And I felt it with you, and I completely understand what you were saying in there, you know. So like, what do you think about like that sort of stuff?
I wasn't ready. Like, I won Star Search, but you could say I really wasn't ready to really win. I wasn't an adult yet. I was 31, but I wasn't an adult. And also I didn't have the kind of material I was doing was, it was okay, but I feel I slowly grew as a person and as a comedian, because you can't really grow that much as a comedian unless you're a person too.
Right.
I could only grow so much because I wasn't really that much of a person yet. And like, I remember one comedian, a very funny guy named Tim Jones. I think sadly he passed on. And if I'm wrong, please, Tim Jones, don't get mad at me for saying this. But I heard this, but a very funny guy. I remember he once said to me when I was first starting out at the Laugh Stop in Newport Beach, I was hosting shows in the 80s and he was already a middle act. He'd come into town. But we were talking, he said to me, it takes about 7 years for a comedian to really find himself. And at that point, I only been doing it 2-3 years, but after 7 years, I hadn't found myself. I mean, it took me years and years and still, I think, but I kept going. My friend of mine named Dan said he was watching, he'd quit stand up. We started together, but he'd let me stay at his house in New York. And he'd say to me, Al, you're one of these guys that just keeps slowly getting a little better, And it was like that through me, through the 90s, just slowly a little better. In the 2000s, slowly a little better. Now, even now, slowly a little better. Going to England and Edinburgh, slowly a little better. I've always been one of those guys. So it doesn't offend me to hear someone say that, because I never was at my peak. I think I'm getting there now still. Actually, Gary Shandling once said that to me. I used to luckily play basketball at his house. And I said, Gary, when did you know you really became Gary Shandling? And he said to me, I still don't think I've become it. So even a guy that brilliant, and that with Larry Sanders' show, he had just finished the Larry Sanders show. Even he didn't feel he had arrived. So I think maybe it's just an attitude, a mental attitude. Maybe everyone should have, because we're all growing and changing. So yeah, there's a part of me. Totally, I felt jealous of other comics that were passing me by on. But if I looked at it like passing me by, what does that mean? I mean, Jerry Seinfeld once said a great thing. You're not competing against anyone. You're your own battle with yourself.
And also, what'll happen sometimes if you start to do well, you'll over-relax and you'll start screwing with lines that you've got down cold. You start going, maybe I'll try it this way for the first time in my life. When it's worked this way every single time, let's try it like that.
Would you suggest, my shrink said he would offer me Enderol or something? There's some kind of drug that it doesn't alter your mind, but it makes you stop shaking or something. Would you think?
Yeah, that's good.
Do you think that would be
Sure. Experiment with chemicals. That seems like a very good idea.
The higher me could look at it like, me getting mad at that comic saying to me, yes, the more insecure me got mad, but the higher me should be like, hey, I'm on my own journey. Yeah.
Right. And you are continuously getting better. You're always evolving. Do you?
By the way, let me quickly say there are some days I've gotten worse. Like I make stupid mistakes and I'm worse than I was and I regress. So it's not like this constant up, I do get worse a lot of times.
Yeah, but it's always a chart that's always going up. So
right. Hopefully, I'm sure it's going to start going permanently down pretty soon. I mean, I don't know how soon, but if I keep doing this into my 90s, believe me, it's going down.
Right. No, but I think too now, like with the documentary, you get a whole new audience that's going to now discover you. And do you think that the documentary could help kind of launch you into the public eye more?
I'm sure a little, but the question is, Dano said a funny thing. I don't know if one of the producers, Dano Marino,
right?
He said, Al, I don't know if he wants me saying this, but it was funny. He said something like, boy, Al, I don't know. We took on a big job making Al Lubel famous. I mean, that ain't easy. That ain't easy. I tried, because I've always been ambivalent about fame, because the child in me didn't really want to be famous because I didn't really want to grow up. And I associated fame with growing up. I mean, if I become famous, to a certain extent, you have to grow up to a certain extent, and I didn't really I wanted to stay a child in the background. I wanted to be in the background, you know.
Why do you
so
think though? Why do you think what's afraid of growing up? Is it the responsibility, or is it that you would have to be on your A game all the time? Like if you're, let's say you're as famous as like, or regarded in comedy as like a Seinfeld or Chappelle or something like that. So now every time you do an appearance, you got to be, is that what it is? Is that the standard raises?
part of it's that, but it's also related to my fear. Like, you know, let's say I become a Seinfeld or a Chappelle, then I'm a legend. What's the next stage after legend? Dead legend.
Right.
You know, it's like not just career, just dead. I don't want to grow up because I don't want to die. I keep thinking if I don't have to grow, if I don't hit, it's like a joke I sometimes do. If I don't have to hit adulthood, what's after adulthood? Deadhood. Right. If I never hit adulthood, if I stay into childhood, I still got adulthood coming up. My adulthood separates me from deadhood. But if I go to adulthood, then the next stage is deadhood. I'm afraid of death. I'm trying to ward off death.
I was always afraid of people dying all the time. Her dying, the father dying. And I think the reason was because I felt so helpless. You guys raised me in a helpless, I was so dependent, wildly. I felt no sense of self. If you guys are dead, I'm dead.
And I realized that's stupid because if I become big and famous, I have all this money to buy the anti-aging medicine. But no, but you're right. That is one of my motivations, actually, to get money, to get famous, to get the money for the anti-aging stuff, to ward off death.
Yeah, I think like with death, it's definitely a scary thought and topic. And you know, is there an afterlife, and what really happens, or is it just it was just over? Is, you know, that's the scary part. It's the unknown.
Right, the unknown. I never liked the unknown.
Now you talk, there's a lot of talk about being ambitious throughout the documentary. You say some parts, you say you are ambitious, other parts you say, you know, I lack a little ambition, I'm lazy and this stuff. Now with this documentary kind of being a hit and taking off a little bit, does that put some more, you know, stoke some fire under you? Do you feel more ambitious? Do you feel like you want to get to a next level? Or
I kind of do, but I want to kind of be like, I just want to keep getting better. I like getting better. I'm fascinated by stand-up comedy. Like I've noticed ways to make it a little better writing, better performing of it, better timing, you know, and I do kind of like the attention from getting better.
Yeah,
you know? I must say that, but I don't want to just get well known. You know, I like, you know, the idea of getting better at it, because like you said, then there's more expected of you. And I'm kind of glad that I am better, because if there is more expected of me now, I feel I'm better and I have something to offer. But
right.
If I didn't have that, I'd be terrified of getting more attention, because like I wouldn't feel I had anything to offer.
Right.
So a good thing for me was living in England. I lived in England for like 4 years, and well, off and on since 2013, kind of like, but I got more stage time there. I wasn't getting enough in LA, not even enough. I was getting hardly anything. And so I was getting more in England. Again, it was still a struggle there, but I was getting more. So I got a little better out there, you know, so I'm grateful I got better, you know.
And I can see the England audience is really digging you. Like the English audience is kind of like that kind of alt style. And I think that they must have been eating it up.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, but again, every crowd's different. Like you could go to like certain areas in England, you know, where they just expect, you know, where's the joke?
Right.
But in general, I do find, yeah, English crowds have I think maybe English people, they have a better attention span in some ways. They're more patient. They'll let you, you know, go a longer without getting to a punchline and see where it leads, you know, in some ways. But every crowd is different, you know, like, you know, you can get a great American crowd and a lousy English crowd. You never know. But in general, but for me, I think it kind of woke me up a little. I liked playing to different audiences out in England and also around Europe. Just the experience of playing to different type crowds, because when in America, you know, I get kind of used to the crowds, although I haven't been to a lot of states in America. So that would have been different for me if I had. But the point is going to all these different places, the Netherlands, Brussels, Germany, you know, all these different places and all these different crowds. it was helpful for me, a guy who had been doing stand-up for so long, to experience all these different crowds, but also all these different cultures, just to try to wake me up a little, like get me out of my habits. And I was getting, less depression, because you can't be depressed when you're like, wow, what's this? What's that?
If you want to be a comedian, someone said it well recently, LA is not the place to be a comedian. It's a place to try to become a star. And I'm kind of ambivalent about that, or at least I'm lazy enough that I don't want to do all the work that it takes to become famous. And just fame for fame's sake is bullshit to me. I'd like to keep getting better as a comedian. I don't care. I really don't care about, as a kid I cared about fame, but I don't care about fame. I should maybe, because having some money is a great thing and takes a lot of stress off. But again, I'm not that disciplined to work hard enough to achieve that. But in England, at least, I could keep getting better as a comedian, and I feel good about that.
If there's one takeaway that you want people to have from seeing your documentary, what is it? What would you want people to remember about it?
I think that there shouldn't be just one takeaway. No. Why? It's too much pressure. Pick one takeaway. I can't even think of two takeaways. So I don't know if I could think of one of many, because I don't know if I could think of many takeaways. So I'm afraid to say one takeaway, because maybe I should have thought of 5 takeaways and then pick which of the 5 takeaways would be the one takeaway. I feel scared if I just pick one takeaway. What if I thought of 10 takeaways and that one takeaway wouldn't be the takeaway I took away? So I choose to take away. So I'm afraid, how many takeaways do I have to gather in my brain to select the one takeaway? It's possible just to pick one takeaway and to say that's the takeaway. Maybe you're right, that would be the takeaway, but it's creating great anxiety in me, this takeaway question.
Al, you're awesome, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. Tell everybody where they could find the documentary, where they could follow you, if you have social media and all that good stuff.
By the way, let me say one quick thing, and I'm not just complimenting you because I feel guilty for attacking Parlay. But I watched one of your episodes, I think Cheech or Chong, which one?
Oh yeah, Tommy Chong, yeah.
Yeah, excellent episode, and
thanks.
But I'm really impressed with that, and this too, that you really take your time to listen and you pause, and then you think of your question, and you really are very in the moment.
Oh, and, thanks, man. That means a lot. Appreciate that.
Excellent.
Awesome.
And what was your question?
Just if you could tell everybody where they could find you, find the documentary, or follow you on social media, any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm not into that. I think the documentary, like you said, is on Amazon Prime, but it's on a few other things. I'm working on my website. I'm getting my friend to fix it up. It's not really there yet. They can find me on Earth.
Awesome.
Somewhere on Earth. The odds are, I'm guessing, so far I've been always on Earth. There's a good chance you can find me somewhere on Earth.